Good morning. This is Shellie Enteen speaking at the Namaste Center in Hendersonville, and I hope I have the date right. It's March 24th?
24th, yes.
Okay, good. I think it is. So anyway, I told Charlotte that since I spoke last Palm Sunday, those of you who didn't hear it, I guess there's an awful lot of you who didn't hear it, really, I probably could have repeated my talk. But you can also catch that on the Conscious Conversations. I talked about the symbolism of donkeys and palms and what that was meaning. And I also talked a little bit about the Beatitudes, the Aramaic translation of the Beatitudes, and that's before you all got introduced to Dale Allen Hoffman. That's one of the reasons that you did, I think. So I'm not doing that. So if you want to hear that, you have to, So I was wondering, what am I going to do? And the thought came to me about the rise in popularity followed by the precipitous decline, which is a very common thing that happens in our life experience. We frequently raise people up, get them on a big high pedestal, and then we start taking shots at them, right? So we can watch them fall. This is it's just so common. It just seems to be something that we need to do. And so I was thinking I was going to talk about that, except I realized at one point I wasn't. And that point was early this morning, which frequently happens when I'm going to do a talk. They said, well, that's a really good point, and it is part of what I'm going to talk about, but we have a fabulous Course in Miracles teacher sitting right here in the front row, who's Charlotte McGinnis, and she can really give you a lot of information about the ego and why the ego wants, needs, has to do this. So definitely check out her class. But what I was led to speak about this morning is the fact that that's part of a cycle. And that even the story of Jesus is showing us a cycle, a repeating cycle that is our experience in the third dimension on Earth. Okay? And what that is birth, and it's to follow the moon. Okay? This is what it shows us, that we, wax in light, we come to a fruition, and then we start to give out, and then we start to recalibrate, and then we let go, release, and then we start again. So when we look at this holiday, if you want to look at that, if you want to look at the Yeshua or Jesus, depending on how you like to think of him, what we're seeing, I think, around this time is this really uncomfortable cycle for most of us, and that's one of the points of this talk, is the cycle of, the fruition has occurred. And the fruition occurred because a lot of people showed up for the gig. When he was doing the Sermon on the Mount, he had tons of people in front of him, and he delivered the most profound teachings. And if you know the Aramaic translations, I really highly recommend that you discover them. You'll find out what he was really saying, and you'll know that it's the truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you, God. And, it is very much what we're all being led to understand now by various teachers, which is being present in the moment, following the breath, being more concerned with the inner world than we are with the outer, being true and honest about what we feel so we're not suppressing and getting stuck. This is all in the Beatitudes, which we have had a very different way of seeing those, okay? So he had his fruition point, and he was disseminating, which is the phase after the full moon, with this talk, and now he was going to go into the decline and the ending, all right? When we look at the moon, we're looking at ourselves. We are also born, and we go through the same cycle. That's one cycle. The earth has cycles. We are having spring. Okay, so you know, we get this idea of rebirth, and then we go through all the way through winter. So that's a cycle. One of the interesting things about cycles is there's not just one cycle. There are multitudes of cycles that are happening at all times. So for instance, in your body has these cycles, you know, so when you take a breath, comes to a fruition point, and then there's a lot of things that happen to that breath. The breath starts turning into different things and oxygenates your blood, and this and that is going on, and then you are going to exhale and let it go. Right? But while that's happening, your heart is beating, and your heart is receiving and giving at the same time. That's like a very fast cycle. That's like a cycle that's almost two cycles, you know, like the Doublemint twins. Two cycles in one. So, but we have this really interesting phenomena that is part of our nature and has characterized us as a mindset over, you know, thousands of years now. And that is the romance and the glamour and the love of only one part of the cycle. And this is how I see what's going on now, okay? The love of the building to fruition and fruition is the problem, okay? The dislike of disseminating and releasing and being empty is the problem. Right? If I was running for president, I would be running on this ticket now. Seriously. Because this is a core issue in our consciousness, and it's not just in the consciousness of those guys, it's in my consciousness too. And I'll tell you how I know. Because when I sit down with my checkbook and I'm getting ready to write a check for a bill, I'm in a disseminating cycle, and I have a little bit of resistance to that. I like it when it's coming in, and I'm depositing, and I look at, you know, I love that. It's just the coolest time. But that disseminating is tricky, right? The disseminating, the readjusting, and the releasing. I think somewhere in our being, we got frightened of it. I don't think the indigenous people were frightened of it, and I don't think Yeshua was frightened of it. Because I think that those people were very tuned into something that I've been really happy to find, thanks to Pam and Brian having a speaker at their December 21st event on quantum physics. You know, proving all this wonderful metaphysical stuff I've been doing was true all along. The unified field and the holographic universe, if we really were aware of the reality that nothing ever ends, that there is no end, this is what Jesus is teaching next week, is, you know, the resurrection energy. Nothing is gone. We don't really get that. So we fear that cycle. Like if I give it, then I might not have. I don't want to give. I want to have. So that's why people with lots and lots of money don't want to give $250 a year, which they might spend on a dinner, into a mass pot so that, you know, the country runs well and everybody's okay. You know, that disseminating, it's very tricky. I mean, it's all right if you're disseminating and it gets you like your, you know, your favorite Gucci purse or, you know, that, because you still have, you know, it's still a fruition. You know, so we really, I think that one of the things that Jesus knew, if he was doing this teaching and this beautiful Beatitudes, and I would really love to hear the Aramaic translation of the teachings around Easter also. I'd love to hear that. In fact, I think I better call Dale right away.
Yeah.
See if I can get him on my show, because I would like to hear him address this whole idea of the death and the resurrection energy from the Aramaic translation. But I think that this is one of the things that we're focused on right now. Now, why do I think we're focused there? I'll tell you. Because Ken hasn't said I don't have time left, so I can tell you. We just went through an age shift. And I want to tell you how many people are disappointed in it. Have you noticed the disappointment? Because a lot of people, the first time I spoke here, Charlotte was interviewing me as an astrologer and stuff about what did I think was going to happen. And I'm so happy that I said, nobody knows. I'm so glad I said that, because if I had said, there's going to be a big whatever, then I would have to, be wrong. Nobody likes that either. It's just more fruition on being right. So, but the thing is that everybody was kind of hoping, there was like this hope that there was going to be enough of a major change that, I really, it would have been okay with me. If I woke up the next morning, well, not the next morning, because I was giving a talk at that event, and I wanted it to wait till December 23rd, so I could do the talk, but I thought maybe if we were in fifth dimension, that would be cool, And, but now people are so disappointed in this particular cycle that we're in right now, that they actually decided that December 21st wasn't really the day. I mean, people were calling me up, and I just like laugh. You have to understand that I'll laugh if you tell me things like this. I really will, because, it wasn't really, it was really March 21st. Well, today's March 24th, all right? But that's how disappointed they were. Because cycles aren't that comfortable unless we're right in that crest of movement and fruition. We're not that happy about it, And believe me, I am just like this. I'm not setting myself. In fact, I'm learning this for myself too. This is one of the reasons that I got to give you this talk, because the process. Can you be with the process? I had a guest also on the greatest thing about having a blog talk radio show for me is that I'm learning a lot from my guests, because I have guests on there, and I had a woman who's associated this week, she lives in Minnesota, she's associated with a group called Venus Rising that's up here near Waynesville, Isis Cove. And she was talking about a medicine wheel. Okay, a medicine wheel is also cycles, because you've got east, south, west, north, and in her system, it's called an instar, I-N-S-T-A-R, medicine wheel. I never heard this before, and I've been in Native American stuff for a long time. This is the wheel with insect teachers on the points. Okay? We don't like to think about them too much, right? Let's be honest. Insects should not be seen and not heard. Some things can be seen but not heard, or heard but not seen. Insects, you don't want anything to do. But you can't live here without them. They are creating our world. Okay? So you don't have them, we don't have our world. So the first teacher is on the east of this medicine wheel. And the teacher is the earthworm. The earthworm? A teacher? Well, yes, because what the earthworm is doing at that point of birth is fascinating. What it's doing is it's reconstructing. It's taking all the stuff that was there and it's redoing it. It's breaking it down and it's creating a fertile environment for new things to grow. So, what I'd like to invite you to understand is that we are in the earthworm cycle of the Aquarian age. It doesn't mean that nothing changed, because a lot of us know plenty changed. A lot of us feel huge change, and people are very disoriented. And the first word that came to me was the idea of recalibrating my energies to what's going on out there. And last time I spoke, I was telling you about how we had so many planets in Pisces that it was like we were all underwater, trying to swim under it, and we were really in a stage that is also a stage after birth, where we're napping a lot because we're having trouble being where we are, so we have to keep, adjusting. We just went into the fire sign Aries. A lot of planets are going to be going through that. So all of a sudden, equinox came and there was a jolt because Mars went into air, a lot of other things, not just the sun entering the sign. So now things are starting to move. So now we really have to do something with everything instead of just sleep away and say, how come I'm not getting anything done? Or, all the things that people were saying to me, like, I wanted, now you're doing things, but it's all a little different. It's all a little different. So what I'm really beginning to understand is that in this stage, we still have that stuff. We brought all that stuff with us from the age of Pisces. There have been other age shifts in recorded history. This is not the first one. This is a very significant one for us in terms of consciousness and awareness, but it isn't the first one. There are recorded history of the age of Gemini even, but definitely Taurus. You can see Egypt there, Aries, the ram's horns and stuff. That was the age of Aries. Jesus is the big teacher of the age of Pisces. Right? So the big teacher of the age of Aquarius is us. That's the tricky part. We're not going to be able to go, look at that guy over there, or even that woman over there, because even the goddess worship is outside of us. I really believe that, the people in the beginning with all of this knew it was an internal expression. And I saw a really beautiful post on Facebook. I really like Facebook because people post the most gorgeous things, art, it's just beautiful. So there was a picture of, if you're in a Celtic mode, which I am frequently, there's something called the Green Man. And he is in ascendancy at this moment because of the re-greening of the earth. It's a man, and he's usually shown also with horns of, a deer or something, and, green. It's very, very green. And there was a picture of him embracing a female that was made of flowers. And, I've never really investigated the mythology enough to understand what I was seeing, that pagan stuff, a little weird. I don't know if I really want to know that, I don't know why, but it makes me nervous. And all that is talking about, which is just so beautiful, is the interaction or the intermarriage and the intertwining of the animal kingdom with the earth plant kingdom. Okay? And the animal kingdom is represented by the male figure, and we are that. Okay? We are that. And then the plant and earth energies of the feminine, and how they are entwined. You can't have, 5 minutes. You can't have one without the other. So this time that we're in right now, and an equinox, a balancing time, this is another cycle that we're going through, this balancing time. So this image of the fact that we have to embrace the duality, is in this time also. But the duality is also in that cycle. Right? You would say that the masculine energy is that waxing cycle of the moon. We're going out, we're gaining, we're doing, and we're going to make a fruition. And they say the feminine cycle is the giving out and the releasing and that empty place that waits to receive. And where the seeds are planted that will start to move out. So I invite you, in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to invite you to go into your life this week, because there's so many different cycles. I started thinking about all of them this morning that we have in our lives constantly and continuously. And even within the cycle, there are cycles. And just start looking at your life that way. And when you feel yourself coming up against a resistance to any part of it, any part of that cycle, especially if you find yourself resisting the disseminating or the giving out, the readjusting and the releasing, take a look at that and know how important it is and how powerful it is. Because when, if you start a project and you get to a certain point and that fruition wasn't quite what you wanted it to be, which happens all the time. I mean, it can be a relationship. It doesn't have to be something, in a monetary way or anything in the world. It can be a feeling space between people. Then when you get into that, give out what I've already experienced, and you get to that point where you're saying, okay, we need to make some adjustments now. Now is the time to look at what I could do differently. If you were a gardener, this is real easy stuff. They don't have a problem with this. Because if I didn't yield well, maybe I needed a little more of that in the soil, or, that's easy for them, But for us, this is something that we need to do. We need to know this, because we have to also tune in to the fact that it's not a problem, that there is always the rebirth. In the quantum field, even if you let this body go, you're not gone. You are going into the Father's mansion, which has many rooms, and I am going to prepare a place for you. You're going to the quantum field. You're just going to wait till you decide to come back again, if you do. So that was the message that I was given to deliver to you today. And I do, think that it would be a good one to ponder. Have some pondering time, because the time between Palm Sunday and Easter is also a cycle of inner reflection. So Charlotte is coming to the camera now, and I'll say goodbye again from the Namaste Center.